It's November 5th, 2020. This is Roqe. As you may have heard, there was a little election that took place this week that might, affect the future of the world. The U.S. election 2020 has been full of surprises, emotions, fear, folly, and hopefully inspiration at the end. We're still not entirely sure who will occupy the White House, but after 4 turbulent years of Trumpism, what are Iranians saying? Well, despite all the controversy, the travel ban, a bungling of a pandemic, don't go jumping to conclusions that Persians would be Team Democrat. Rather, seems Iranians in America are just as polarized as the rest. Today, a Roqe look at the election and the implications for the diaspora. Mehrzad Boroujerdi and Reza Goharzad join the panel. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode number 59 of Roqe. We are on our ongoing mission to build a new audio-visual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity, coming to you on SoundCloud, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and Telegram. خوش اومدید، مرسی، 100 سال به این سالها thank you for joining us. You can link to any of our platforms, the hub of all things Roqe, at our website, roqemedia.com. Hello, the fabulous Keon.
Hi, Jian. How are you? I was like, are you going to let me say hi?
My brain is fried. My brain is fried from watching CNN all night for 2 nights in a row. I'm seeing John King's Magic Board in my sleep. I've lost my voice. I know more about the counties in little parts of Georgia than I think I will ever need to know. And at the time of this recording right now, we do not know an official winner of this election in America. It looks like Biden, but we don't know. It could be Biden or it could be your guy, Keon.
My guy.
Well,
hey.
Listen, I know you don't want to get angry.
I don't want to get crucified.
But you represent a position.
I'm anti-Biden. I'll put it that way. I'm not pro anything. But I think I'd rather the lesser of two evils and go the other way.
All right. And
I think a lot of Iranians,
and the lesser of two evils is Trump.
In my opinion.
All right.
Yes.
Here's the thing. Beyond the ideology and party politics and the votes, you can count me, Keon, as someone who believes the last 4 years have been destructive ones for America. It's basically, I think it all went to shit when David Bowie died. January 2016, Bowie dies, and what's happened since then, right?
That's it.
So, assign the blame where you will: Muslim bans or zealous left-wingers, police shootings, white supremacy, COVID numbers out of control, pulling out of Paris Accords, threats of war with Iran, North Korea, whatever, or cancel culture, political correctness, toxic polarized environment. We've talked about all of that, but I have to say, the images of windows being boarded up in major American cities because there's a freaking election happening.
It's terrifying.
The fact that there are protesters, but goaded on by a leader saying stop counting ballots. Like, what country is this, right? a guy calling it a hoax, all in the midst of like a raging health crisis with 100,000 cases a day of being diagnosed
with
there.
Proof of fake ballots being.
Oh, come on! You can only go so far with this. This guy, the president of the United States, just got up at the White House podium and said that the election is being stolen because he doesn't like the votes that are being counted against him. He likes the states where the votes are for him. He doesn't like the states where the votes are against him. This is absurd, and it's got to end.
Let's look into it.
Don't
just. My advice to people is don't just take whatever the media is feeding you.
Watch Fox News.
No, I've actually absolutely not.
Okay.
Take that information with a grain of salt and do your own investigation into what is really going on.
There was a David Bowie song with Pat Metheny in the early 80s called "This Is Not America." I encourage you all. شاید جون عزیزم چطوری؟ خوبی؟ هفته خوبی داشتی؟ Hello, Captain Reza.
Hello, sir.
Shia, I think you got to hear this David Bowie song. "This Is Not America." It's from it was used in a film, The Falcon and the Snowman. It's a beautiful song worth checking out. That notion is alive and well right now, that this is not America. And I know there's a debate about it where some folks say, well, no, actually, racial divisions, violence, chaos, polarization, animosity, discrimination, propaganda, this is America. But, you know, I really love that country. And I'm being serious. I'm a Canadian, grew up in England, but I love the United States. And because I've been to every part of the U.S., over and over again. A touring musician, you get the privilege of doing that. And when the Gulf War happened in 2001, I wrote this travel log for the Globe and Mail newspaper. I would go from city to city. I was traveling in the States to talk to people there, get their opinions and feelings in the wake of 9/11. And my takeaway was that you cannot ever typecast America as one thing or another. Those of us outside of the United States, people around the world, people, we tend to go, even Canadians, you know, we say, oh, Americans are like this. It is such an amazingly diverse place. You travel through the country, you're traveling through a number of different countries almost. And you know, I love the place. This election does feel like a continuation of a dark period over the last 4 years in America. And at the very least, election votes should be counted and respected, and the winners should be announced, and the loser should accept that. Here's hoping that better days are ahead for America.
Let's hope so.
Whether your guy wins or not, Kian. The orange skin and we will talk about the implications of all of this for Iranians in America, in the diaspora, and in Iran with Dr Mehrzad Boroujerdi and Reza Goharzad in a few moments. Both people who have spent years looking at the culture of Iranian Americans and the United States and Iranians within it and outside of it. Did you want to say something, Captain Reza?
Yeah, I had a question about the song that you mentioned.
This is not America. Yeah.
I wanted to know in terms of content, because I listened to that song. But is it close to, in terms of content and context, is it close to Childish Gambino's version of "This Is America"?
No.
Or Donald Glover?
No. Love Donald Glover.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Totally different.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Reza. That's
unnecessary.
I'm sure everybody really appreciated this minute that you took up with that.
I don't know what we'd do without you.
Can we start a jar that says
useless
questions Reza's going to ask after we tape the show? Listen, on to much more important things than elections, riots, lives lost. Lubia Polo.
I was going to say, what is it?
Now I don't want to belabor the story because clearly everyone's exhausted by it. The fact that Chai didn't share the Lubia Polo and that we've had enough of all that. But there is some late breaking developments. We can't entirely call the election, but we can call the Lubia Polo in our kitchen in a new big dig.
Is it still there? Is a better question.
No, this is a new. Well,
I saw it.
Yeah. This is Reza's girlfriend. Now, this woman seems to be. If she's doing anything other than making Lubia Polo, I don't know what it is because she is a Lubia Polo machine. So she has made a new batch of Lubia Polo.
Unbelievable. Reza, did you buy a ring yet?
No.
You need to ring that woman up.
I honestly think about it.
Is that the criterion for getting married?
It is in my books. Listen, it's a huge plus. If a woman makes a nice pot of Lubia Polo, I mean, who's complaining there?
Or a man makes one.
Oh,
whomever makes one.
But it's harder to find.
Is it? Is it hard to find men
in the Iranian community? I don't know. Write to us if you're
I don't think it's that hard to find.
Do you know how to make Lubia Polo?
Sure.
Wow.
But I'm into cooking.
We should have okay. Well,
what do you mean? Oh, you've had my food every time. It's like a surprise to her.
I know.
It's one thing I can do. I make food.
You are a good cook. Yeah,
I made a soup. I brought in my famous soup yesterday.
Yesterday he brought his lentil soup. And it was delicious.
I think I sampled it a few weeks ago. Yes.
Right.
So we should have a lubia polo cook-off
between me and Reza's girlfriend.
I mean, I can.
And then he puts the ring on whoever makes it better.
Oh no!
But you know what's funny? The fact that she thought she was putting an end to this lubia polo situation.
Right.
And I was like, "You're starting a
How
saga."
wrong she was. Actually, it's funny because I made a little video, it's a stupid video and then Ponce the artist was like, we have to put that on Instagram, so it's on our Instagram, Facebook. But I was making a little video in our office to go into the kitchen, showing that there's a new big pot of lubia polo, crediting Reza's girlfriend. Like, this is like literally in real time as I'm making the video. Shaya is there before anyone has touched it, eating the lubia
like
polo.
A little
you
rat.
can see video evidence of this.
Out of the pot.
You can see with that guilty face.
I'm so sorry to everybody. I apologize to everybody that we are carrying on like this with the fate of the world in the hands of an American election, but sometimes
Have a bowl of lubia polo. That makes everything.
How's the cooking going for you, Kian?
Listen, Jian, the gym's shut down, and I'm right back where I started.
If you're so convinced that a good lubia polo will win somebody's heart forever, this doctor that you've been dating. I'm asking. I mean, this doctor,
Yes. No.
Keon's doctor.
We didn't know.
Why must you mention that?
Because yesterday I was like, Keon, can you come in for a meeting? Yesterday was Wednesday. Can you come in for a meeting? She's like, Wednesdays I'm with my doctor. And she doesn't mean like
me. No, I meant because he doesn't have full weekends off, and Wednesdays are a free
but I like the
day,
way every time you mention him, you can't just say my boyfriend. It's like my doctor.
It's my mom's influence. I swear to God. Right, growing up, she always used to say, "Kian, don't marry a businessman, not like an entrepreneur. Marry a doctor. They'll never cheat on you," which is completely false. Not to say that this guy cheats. Anyway,
wow.
She's like, her theory is that there's
what's his name?
I don't want to say. I was hoping you wouldn't bring him up. Anyway,
Bijan?
No, it's a Persian name. Anyway.
Masood? Dr. Masood? Jamshid.
Jamshid it is.
You guys are it's Asghar. I'm kidding. No offense to that name.
Dr. Asghar. No. Well, anyway, my point
What's your point in
my point is, by the way, is he also pro-Trump? Maybe. Yes, he is.
No, listen,
I don't want politics to be a problem for you guys.
It's never.
All right. Well, then he is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, here's my question to you.
Yes.
If you were so quick to say to Reza, put a ring on your wonderful partners because they make a good lubia polo.
Yeah.
Do you make a good lubia? Like, maybe this is the way to be doctor. Oh.
We cook together on the weekends. There's nothing else to do. And going to a restaurant.
I thought you said he's not
outdoors,
available on the weekends.
Well, sometimes he is.
Okay, all right.
It's like, wow, I can't. You can never get a lie past Gia. He fact checks the hell out of you.
Oh my God.
No, we cook together. It's nice. Like on the weekend we make.
And he brings a doctor's precision to his cooking.
Listen, I'm a disaster. Like we went biking yesterday, and the idiot that I am likes to take videos when it's a beautiful view. There were people, and I braked my bike too hard, and I fell off of it.
Oh,
ruined my bike. So, and then this happened. This happened again last week, and yes. So I think like this is evolutionarily speaking. I think I need a doctor in my life because I'm a hazard to myself.
That's with your doctor. Shaya?
Yes.
We could have been a doctor, and neither of us are. None of us are. Reza's not.
Just to be clear,
second degree.
Oh my God!
No, I mean,
other professions are just as respectable.
There is no Persian parent who would prefer any of us over your doctor. I'm sure.
That's heartbreaking.
You've got the doctor, and you fake fall off your bike so that he'll rescue you on Wednesdays.
So good.
Before you guys cook together. I mean, what kind of a life do you have?
I don't know.
No wonder you're pro-Trump. Everything's perfect for you. Stock market, everything's great.
The joke is, friends of mine have asked, what does your mom think of him? Has she met him? And my answer is, listen to me. Listen very carefully. Persian doctor, period. That is all. That's the answer.
All right.
Anyway,
okay. So we got we had an episode earlier this week that I was hoping wouldn't get swallowed up by all the election news. Elnaz Sadaf.
Yeah.
And her Roy B. computer.
Yeah.
I know we got some letters about that.
We sure did.
And you were saying you want to talk about some letters about Maz Jobrani. That was a few episodes ago.
Yeah, so a few episodes ago. So listen, Maz Jobrani, we know him as a comedian, an actor. Great guy. What I expected on that episode was to him, everybody has a political view, of course. Mm-hmm. You can say your piece, but I found that the whole episode was very political,
and you didn't like that.
Which I mean, you're a comedian. I'm sorry, I'm going to be that person, but no, I'm saying Maz Jobrani is a comedian. I love him as a comedian. I don't agree with his views. Right. That's fine.
So you found some letters that vindicate your feelings about that interview.
But the funny thing is, it's like the bulk of the letters on the Maz Jobrani episode was very political.
Sometimes people write in a letter when they disagree with something as opposed to writing to say they love it.
That is
right?
true. That is
so
true.
That might be part of it.
Yeah.
So we'll get to those letters. Yes,
we will.
The fabulous Kian, Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya, thank you. Let us talk about what is happening in the world right now. The entire world has been caught up in the mystery, the madness, the machinations of the American presidential election this week, as perhaps fitting with this era of U.S. politics. The whole thing has been emotional, divisive, chaotic in some cases, unpredictable, infuriating, depending on what side of the fence you're on, and who has won, who ends up winning. For the record, at this time of this recording, while it appears that the Democrat Joe Biden has found victory, we do not actually have the official winner of this election, not to mention potential legal challenges and recounts in the days and weeks ahead. For many of us in Canada or around the world, where Donald Trump is deeply unpopular, it may seem strange that Americans did not summarily reject Mr. Trump and Trumpism in the midst of a badly handled pandemic response, but clearly it is more complicated than that. And the implications of this vote in the coming months and the next administration are not just major for Americans, but for Iranians as well. In fact, many have made the case that no group will be more affected by this election, outside of Americans that is, than Iranians, those in America and in the diaspora and in Iran. Well, to help us assess what some of those implications are and how Iranians see this vote, I am joined by two prestigious guests today who know their stuff in this area. Dr Mehrzad Boroujerdi is an internationally recognized expert on Iran and Middle East politics and the director of Virginia Tech School of Public and International Affairs. He has written and contributed to a number of books on Iranian society and politics. Professor Boroujerdi is a past president of the International Society for Iranian Studies and the founding director of the Middle Eastern Studies program at Syracuse University. Professor Mehrzad Boroujerdi joins us from Los Angeles today. Hello, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome back to the program. And Reza Goharzad has over 40 years of experience as a journalist and political analyst through writing, editing for print media, radio and television programs, and as a human rights activist about political, cultural, and educational discrimination in Iran. He has been an expert and analyst attending presidential conventions of the Democratic and Republican parties to report and analyze those political events for Iranian Americans over the years. And he is currently the writer, producer, and host of the Persian language radio show Politics and Society on KIRN 670 AM radio in California. Reza Goharzad joins us from Irvine, California today. Hello to you, sir.
Hello, and thanks for having me on your show. It's an honor.
It's a great pleasure, Reza, to have you on the program. Guys, this is not going to be easy because we really don't know what's happening, as does any media in North America or around the world right now. But let me say this to start. For those of us like me who are Gen Xers, we can remember back to disputed and divided elections in America, Gore-Bush 2000. But this seems like an extra level of chaos and division this term after 4 years of Trump. Mehrzad, let me start with you. As a longtime American scholar and someone of Iranian background, what are your general impressions of this election so far?
Right. So, I have been living in the United States for the last 40 years, and frankly, I can never think of another time period where I saw the country as polarized as, we have seen it this week with the election that we are talking about. it is clear that we are talking about, two Americas that are in many ways ideologically happen to be diametrically, opposed to one another on a whole host of, serious issues, frankly, in terms of domestic politics, in terms of international politics, and I think the election, if the results hold as they are right now, even if Mr. Biden is a presumptive victor of the presidential elections, the fact that the Democratic Party has not been able to take on the Senate seems to indicate that the political paralysis that they have seen for a long time is going to continue, no end in sight in that regard. And furthermore, it seems to me that at least if the initial reactions from President Trump are any indication about these lawsuits and calling the legitimacy of the election into question, this is not going to bode well for the future. I mean, okay, come January, there is perhaps a new person sitting in the White House, but that doesn't mean that this polarized politics is going to melt away, right? Just because you have had a new person inaugurated as a presumptive new president. So it becomes really important how much the new person can heal the rifts that have developed, the cleavages that have developed within the American society at large.
Reza, let me bring you in here. You're not new to watching American politics and the two big parties in the States. Is this week as astounding to you as Mehrzad has just suggested?
Yes, it is. As you mentioned, 2000 election, I was very new on the United States election. That was my first year of attending the both of the conventions in United States, and watching as an Iranian that is not familiar with kind of voting, kind of conventions and what's going on in United States politics based on the election. But 4 years, 2 years after each other came, and I experienced different kind of atmosphere in Iran, in United States, and then to this year is totally different. As in last 4 years, we were expected that populist president like President Trump, that he doesn't obey any kind of law and order himself. He has no respect to the regulations, and more than that, the people around him, they are trying to bring their own agenda to president's order. So that's why it happens. This is election, and this election, we were expecting that gonna happen like this, but not as strong as like this, that they don't have any clue what's gonna happen and with this gonna end this struggle. Now you're seeing all the lawsuits going, even the strategies from the Republican Party that they were on the time of the Al Gore and George Bush in the law and defense of the George Bush. Now they're joining the Joe Biden teams because they think this is not the way that United States will go to the election, and this is not the way that lawsuit is going. President Trump is this state for me, or let's go to the court. That's all it is.
So we keep hearing, to segue into the direct interest of this program and what is germane to us in the diaspora, we keep hearing the stakes are high for Iranians in Iran and around the world with this election. Do you believe that the results of this election the implications are dramatically different depending on who wins?
Not totally different, because United States, based on all the Democrats and Republicans administrations during the years, they show that they are not going to end the sanction. They are not going to be having the friendly relation with Iran as they have with the Saudi Arabia. The total is relations are different. It is not going to change that much, but based on pressures that from United States increasing, to me, it will be different kind of pressure from Biden or from Trump in future. Depends how they will manage their foreign policy and relation, and how this pandemic gonna go and the economy. But I think that Iran thinking that maybe Biden will be helpful, but in other hand, because Iran likes to live in the crisis, and the crisis will help Iranian government to stay in power, so maybe they like to have the Trump in administration.
Mehrzad, what do you agree? What do you think is at stake for Iranians in Iran and around the world with this election?
Yeah. My take is the following. I think when the Ayatollah says there is no difference between the two, he is not being truthful. There is indeed going to be differences between the two candidates. I feel that if Biden is the next president, he will need to do some things in terms of outreach to Iran for a variety of reasons. For example, Iran's activities in the region, but more importantly, the fact that the uranium enrichment that Iran is engaging in is continuing at full speed, and therefore this is going to become a worrisome issue for the Biden administration. So I think what might happen if Biden is in the White House is that he's going to make some initiatives to Iran to whet their appetites. In other words, offer some help on fighting COVID because of the serious challenge that it is posing to Iran. Talk about return to JCPOA and the nuclear agreement, and yet at the same time, I think it would be foolish of him not to take advantage of the fact that the sanctions imposed by Trump has basically put the United States in a stronger position. So let's say whether it's in regard to Iran's missile activities, whether it's in terms of relations with the Hezbollah and the Shiite militias in Iraq, etc. I think Biden administration is going to put those things to good use. From an Iranian perspective, the folks sitting in Tehran, I see a major rift in the sense that the population in Iran feels that, they are, as Reza was pointing out, they are so exhausted, so disappointed in terms of the type of regime that they have had, that they are hoping, as before, for a savior from outside, and they are pinning their hopes on the United States, be it Trump or Biden, as a way of, rescuing them, which I think is while, you can understand the psychology of desperation and, wanting such a thing, I don't think, frankly, that neither Biden nor Trump is going to change things in Iran in a fundamental manner. After all, President Trump has a track record of 4 years, and Vice President Biden, as being the second in command during the Obama administration, also has a track record in terms of dealing with Iran. So if past is any indication, I think what you can expect with Biden is more of the same of the policies pursued during the Obama era. So that's my take. And I think from the Iranian government perspective, look, they have no option but to negotiate, regardless of who is sitting, in the White House. Their denunciations and saying that it doesn't make any difference, should be regarded for what it is. It's simple propaganda. But they know that the population is very intensely following the course of the U.S. elections, because so much relies on what happens. I mean, people have felt this in their pocketbook. When Mr. Trump was, elected president, the exchange rate between the dollar and real was 3,200 2 months to a dollar, and now it's 32,000 2 months to a dollar. So you can see the depreciation that has taken place just in 4 years. So it becomes crucial how Iran handles the next administration in the U.S.
Gentlemen, you're both Iranian Americans. You both study Iranian Americans. I want to try and get an understanding of the Iranian American psyche. Going into this vote, after this vote, a lot has been made, it occurs to me. I'm watching the mainstream media coverage of this election, and a lot is made of, say, how all Hispanics, especially in Florida, have not gone for Biden, despite this expectation we almost have, this reflexive expectation that non-whites would prefer Democrats, non-whites would prefer Biden. One has to recognize that this is true for Iranians in America as well, who are clearly not a monolithic group when it comes to political preferences. Can you give us a sense of who Iranians have publicly come out to support in this election? Start with you, Mehrzad.
Well, I think what I see, the anecdotal evidence is that for a lot of Iranian Americans, I will describe them as single issue voters. In other words, what mattered for them the most was, the U.S. policy toward Iran, right? And what's going to happen to the Islamic regime. So in that sense, many of them might be similar to the traditional Cuban Americans, in Florida, being single issue voters, which I personally totally disagree with. I think, the Iranian American community should be thinking about what is in their interest above and beyond just the policy toward Iran. You need to think about, the economic policies, how to deal with the COVID challenge right now. You need to think about, the politics of polarization that has been, in vogue over the last 4 years, etc. So I have seen people on both sides of the divide. In other words, Iranian Americans who are single issue voters, and all they care is about what the policy is going to be toward Iran, and then others who have a wider spectrum of views and think back to, for example, how President Trump's Muslim ban, the visa restrictions, etc., came to hurt many Iranians as well, and brought about separation of families and the like. Look, I think we are stating a fact. If the American public at large has been polarized, the same type of divisions can be seen within the Iranian American community as well. And I think this is going to go on for some time. Again, just because of where we sit and how Iran is important to us, and at the same time not necessarily being able to make the calls as to what the policy should be vis-a-vis the Iranian government.
The single issue voter point is well taken, and it occurred to me that for those who don't understand Cuban Americans in Florida voting Trump, we are more familiar with that because we see it with certain Iranian communities going Trump and around that single issue. Reza, on the face of it, even disregarding his character, his prevarications, his disastrous handling of COVID, it would seem strange for Iranians to gravitate towards a guy who has presided over a travel ban that prevents their relatives from entering the country and someone who regularly demonizes Middle Eastern folks and Muslims. And yet there are Iranians who are devoted to Trump. An NPR study came out today that said 35% of Muslims in America voted for Trump this week. How do we make sense of that, Reza?
As a person that I'm always on radio and TV shows, and I receive a lot of calls and a lot of attacks, especially in this election, because I'm not pro-Trump and I'm talking through the reality what's going on in this country. As I see that 3 generations of Iranians, they have different kind of attitude towards the President Trump or this election. The first generation, as Dr. Boroujerdi mentioned about it, the people, they thinking the same way as the Cubans. Okay, Iranian government was changed through the Carter administration, so we are against that. So we are pro the guy that will be change the Iranian regime. There is a younger generation that more Dr. Boroujerdi will know about it because they go to the universities and he see them and he face them. They are totally different. They act like Americans. They have a love for their culture and homeland, but mostly they are looking as a Iranian American, but the American side is more stronger. They're looking what's going to happen to the United States with the Trump administration. In middle, there is a generation like me or others that they are pro-Trump, pro-Biden, or they are in wave of different attitude. I face those every day in my shows, TV, radio, and pressure to stop my activities and to stop my programs on the media. So this gives the sense that how Iranians, they are polarized based on regime change. And I ask my question from them, how long President Trump needed to change the regime? 4 years or 4 years and 1 year, month, 4 years and 1 day? So this is the question that always gonna be in Iranian mind, that so what's going to happen after this election? No matter Biden or Trump. Dr. Boroujerdi explained very well about the United States relation and the foreign policy and what's going to happen to the nuclear deal. But I think most likely Joe Biden, if it's a president, will follow not straightly whatever happened during the Obama era. He will be more stronger towards the right in this situation because he needs the vote of the Congress. He needs to any kind of act that he want to do through the region, most likely to the right wing. So we have right wing Trump and middle Biden following the Obama inside the United States policy for the people, and the foreign policy most likely closer to a little bit in between Trump and Obama.
Reza, when you talk about that polarization amongst Iranians that you experience in the States and you hear from them on your radio show, what about the people in Iran, Iranians in Iran? I can't remember which network it was, one of the Iranian networks I was watching yesterday, where there were Iranians in Iran saying they hope that Trump has won the elections. What are you hearing about their view in this election, Reza?
Same as only the people from Iran, the ones that they are desperate and they want to change, and they are not scared to show their voice or face in front of the Iranian media in Europe or United States and talk about President Trump. Reality, Iran has 80 million people. They are looking for their first thing, and that's the economy. Dr. Boroujerdi explained very good what happened to the dollar and to man in these 4 years. Iranians, they are looking to see that how they're going to end up having their dinner and lunch in their life. But in the propaganda machine that is producing a lot of things through the outside media, no matter what kind is, they are promoting that if the Trump comes, the change will come. And that's why it's coming from Iran too. But it's not, I don't think that's is the 80 million Iranians that they are thinking. Desperation is for 80 million Iranians, yes, but Trump for 80 million Iranians, I don't think so. It's that.
Mehrzad, what are you hearing about the people in Iran in terms of their reactions to this election?
Right. So, again, anecdotal evidence, what I'm hearing is that there was a lot of pro-Trump sentiment in Iran. And, again, hoping that it will bring about regime change. But, I think we need to be realistic. It's something to hope for change from outside. But, when you look at reality as sort of a hard-nosed analyst, I remind myself that, well, wasn't it Mr. Trump who reached out to the leadership of North Korea? Isn't he the one who is negotiating with the Taliban in Afghanistan? So what gives people the idea in Iran that he is less reluctant to negotiate with the Ayatollahs? Indeed, hasn't he himself repeated on more than one occasion that the first call he expected to get, after the election, if he had won, was from the Iranian leadership? So he is signaling, he is communicating in every possible way that he is interested in reaching a deal with Iran, not in toppling the Iranian state. Look, what we know about President Trump is the following. He is an isolationist, right? He is not in favor of military engagement in other parts of the world. Case in point, look over the last 4 years that he has been in office. When it came to the conflicts and the wars in Libya, in Yemen, in Iraq, in Syria, in Afghanistan, right? What was his impulse, either not to get involved at all, or try to pull the American forces out of those places. As such, what gives people in Iran the hope that if he is reelected, he is going to be going and toppling, the regime? I don't see that at all. Indeed, I would say, because Trump understands what is at stake in a military confrontation with Iran, a country that is larger than Afghanistan and Iraq combined, both in terms of geographical size and population size. Okay, so I think it's wishful thinking for folks in Iran to think that if Trump was reelected, it would bring about regime change. No, indeed, his plan, in my view, was that, okay, I have exerted this maximum pressure campaign. I have gotten some concession out of them, and therefore they are in a weakened position. Let's drive a hard bargain, come up with an agreement that then I can hold up as one of my major foreign policy accomplishments. Therefore, I do not see this line. I do not agree with this line of thinking that if it was Trump, the outcome would have been any different in terms of dealing with Iran. And I fully agree with Mr. Goharzad that yes, again, Biden is going to take advantage. He has to pay homage to his internal opponents, and with the strong showing that the Republicans have demonstrated in the House and the Senate, whatever major policy initiative President-elect Biden is going to pursue vis-a-vis Iran, needs to get the buy-in from Congress as well, and that's going to be a hard sell.
Reza, since you hear from folks who support Trump and aren't happy with that you're not taking that position on your radio show or your television programs, if I were to say to you, well, do your best impression. Clearly you've listened to them. I'm sure you've and you have an understanding of their position. Is there something about their argument that you're sympathetic to? Or is there a part of the argument that you can buy into, or at the very least, what do you think the most sane or sage argument is for what pro-Trump argument is for Iranians in America?
Most likely, I hear from them towards the message that they leave to my radio station, or they're asking to eliminate me from the radio. I think that they do different kind of thing. They think that whoever is against Trump is pro-Iranian government. That's only that you can hear from Iranian diaspora, that they think that if I'm against Trump, so I'm pro-Iranian government. And that's not true. Iranians, they think that, oh, let's give him a chance. He will change it. He said this, he said that. So you guys are reality. They are desperate as people in Iran, and they want the end to Iranian regime. One thing that I should mention about the whole idea of the Irans inside the Iran, from the government towards the United States, next administration, Iranian presidential election is in very soon future in next year. Right. So they rather, based on who will become the president of the United States, they arrange their new president in Iran from the new generation, maybe not from the Ayatollahs, some person that looks like Ahmadinejad, but younger, to talk with United States. So they are looking for a deal, no matter with the Biden or Trump.
Let me try this out on you guys. By the way, I'm very grateful to both of you for the generosity of you giving us this time. I've only got a couple more questions. I'll try this out on you. Maybe it's rubbish. Maybe it doesn't make any sense. But I want to get your reaction. I can't help but return repeatedly in my mind to what happened in Iran in 2009. Here we are in America in 2020, a popular repudiation of the incumbent. I mean, no matter what officially happens here, Biden is set to win the popular vote by as much as 5 million or maybe more. And a president who's calling a hoax and setting out to use the laws to ensure a result he likes and stay in power. Do you see any parallels to Iran 2009? And what do you think Iranians could teach Americans about fair elections, Mehrzad?
So I think the similarity I see, both in terms of Iran of 2009 and United States of 2020, is the amazing level of polarization, in the country. What I hope the outcome in the United States is not going to be like the one we saw in Iran, and I hardly doubt it that will be the case. Frankly, at the end of the day, there are still rules and institutions in the United States, from the Supreme Court to the military and so forth, that need to abide by certain code of conduct. And there is a legal system to make sure that people are not misusing their office in that sense. So I do not expect a major sort of level of violence. There is bound to be some riots here and there. Again, because of the level of polarization. But, frankly, I do not expect that to last long. And one indication of that is that if Mr. Biden's victory in the remaining, states really does happen, then the margin of vote, both popular vote and the electoral vote, is going to, put it out of the question in terms of who has actually won, this election. But look, at the same time, I have to say this, as a political scientist for many years, we have been, talking about the values of the American democracy. We even have a term for it in political science. We used to call it a mature democracy, right? Now, in the aftermath of everything that has happened over the last 4 years, I am very much reluctant to refer to the United States any longer as a mature democracy, because we saw how fragile institutions can be, how an unorthodox president can basically change the rules of the game and rules of engagement, and how a party like the Republican Party can be molded by a strong-willed president in his image. These were not the type of things that I really expected in the United States. But so I think, now, as a student of politics, there are certain important lessons I have learned. Give up on the notion of a mature democracy. Look at the vulnerabilities and the fragileness of what can happen even in a country as politically developed as the United States. Secondly, I would say, take the message of Trump seriously. I mean, this politics of nativism, this America First, rhetoric that we heard, it absolutely touched a chord with the American public, at least with half of the American public, as of right now. So for him to have done so well in the midst of a COVID that has been definitely mishandled, I think, speaks to the significance of not only his personal charisma, but also the message that he has been conveying to the public. So we need to study this thing a bit more. After all, this politics of nativism, has a long tradition in the United States. You go back to the early 1900s, there was another movement called the Know Nothings, that again, were demonstrating articulating the same type of demands, mistrust of outsiders, inward-looking politics, and on and on and on. Trump has revived that tradition, and it's definitely, something that we need to be paying much more serious attention to.
I want to go to Reza on this question of parallels to 2009, but can I just say that it's incredibly sad to hear you say that you no longer consider the United States a mature democracy. I mean, even those of us or folks around the world who have been hypercritical of the U.S. over the years, for everything from the slave trade to imperialism, there's been this notion of the value of that Constitution and of knowing how to do a democracy, or at least the postulate of a democracy. And to hear you say what you've just said is actually quite sad.
I hear you. I mean, again, over the last 40 years, my assumption always was that the American Constitution is a secular Bible, right? That people abide by it, that institutions such as, the Supreme Court, the military, Federal Reserve were beyond partisan politics. But everything we have seen, over the last few years has basically sort of shattered that perception for me. Not to say that it has, entirely gone away. After all, as I started saying at the beginning of my response to your last question, there are still rules and institutions, and thank God for that we have those things there. But I think what became really clear to me, at least, is that they are not as solid as once we thought, right? They have become fragile. Look at everything that, for example, has been happening with the Supreme Court and that whole process. Look at the manipulation of media messages on either side that we have seen lately. I mean, it's as if you don't even need to any longer wait to hear, right, what is going to come out of Fox or what is going to come out of CNN.
Of course.
Just those names are going to be communicating something to you, and that was not my perception of the role of media as sort of this watchdog of truth in a mature democracy.
Reza, I don't want to be too silly about this or too reductive, but do you see any parallels with 2009 Iran?
I will tell you the funny thing that Iranian people, they send it to me after these 3 days of going Iranian from Iran. They send me this. In Iranian election, in 1 day, we got the result. We went to street and we got beaten by the government, the police. Now you guys are sitting at home and watching TV to see that what's going to happen. So there is similarity with one thing. In Iran, they had a supreme leader to come and the role that, okay, this is it, but you cannot do anything. Take the people to the prison and stop the people, any kind of activities. In United States, as Dr. Boroujerdi was explaining, that now he has a big question mark about the mature democracy. I have a question mark. Is the people that were promoting Pax Americana, they were thinking that United States unfortunately will change badly and will go through a lot of change, or there is a lot of holes in United States policies that they never noticed till now, or even if they noticed, they had no power to change it. Now the situation shows it is similar for us that we are Iranian, they feel that way. But for the Americans, maybe they don't know anything that what happened in Iran, and that's a similarity. That's only we can feel it, that this is a similarity. Always I said, we had Ahmadinejad in Iran, we got the Trump in United States, different brand, but the same model. But let's see that what happens.
A final question to you both. I'll start with you, Reza. As an analyst, as a commentator, as an observer, what will you most be looking at and for in the coming weeks with respect to implications for Iranians about the way this election is panning out?
Iranians, they are always very excited, but they will get very tired and go to the side. As the election goes to the people that they think like Americans, they are thinking that, okay, it was election, Biden elected or Trump elected, let's move with it, let's live with it. There is not many of those in Iranian community beside the scholars, like as you're talking to Dr. Boroujerdi, or different scholars or students or the people that go to university. Iranian people, especially the first generation, that they are now old, they will be angry if the Trump is not elected. They will think that, as Trump said, this was a rigged election, that was fraud or something. They will follow with that, but they are not going to do any activities.
And Mehrzad Boroujerdi, as a political scientist, what will you be looking for most in the coming weeks with respects to implications for Iranians about the way this election is panning out?
Yeah, I agree. I think, we are experiencing a sort of a heightened level of interest right now in the election. But once the results, become known, people are going to resign themselves to that outcome. Of course, depending on their degree of partisanship, there are going to be voices that might be, calling the results of the election under question, or wishing for a different type of outcome, from either party. But I think those are going to be minority voices. I expect very soon, once the winner issue is settled, the attention of the Iranian American community, as well as the folks in Iran, is going to revert back to the major issue for them, which again is going to be what is going to be the policy of the next administration vis-a-vis Iran. And I think that will be the big issue that is going to be discussed and debated heatedly over dinner tables and gatherings.
Gentlemen, خیلی متشکرم. Reza Goharzad, I thank you so much. What a pleasure it has been to have you on this program.
Thank you very much. And it was my pleasure to talk to you guys, and talking to Dr. Boroujerdi, that he was guest on my TV show. Now I'm honored that I was with him in the same program. For the people in the media, it's not that much opportunity to be with the scholars and learn more from them.
Beautifully said. And Dr. Mehrzad Boroujerdi, to echo Reza Goharzad, thank you so much for the work you do, and thank you so much for the time you've taken again to come on Roqe.
Thank you, Jian, for having me. It was a pleasure, and it was a really pleasure to also be with Mr. Goharzad on this program.
Bye-bye. Khudafis. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Dr. Mehrzad Boroujerdi is an internationally recognized expert on Iran and Middle Eastern politics and the director of Virginia Tech School of Public and International Affairs. We reached him in Los Angeles today. And Reza Goharzad is currently the writer, producer, and host of the Persian language radio program Politics and Society. That's on KIRN 670 AM radio in California. We reached Reza Goharzad in Irvine today. Interesting conversation about the implications. There's so many question marks around what's going to be happening in the U.S. and this election 2020. Who's going to be the president? Which party is going to win the Senate? What's going to happen with potential legal challenges, etc., let alone potential riots or issues, protests in the streets. Glad that those two folks came on and helped us out with this. And if you have any comments, by all means, leave them on any of our platforms or contact us at info@roqemedia.com. Groovy Shaya, Captain Reza, and the fabulous Keon have reconvened. Keon, you want to say anything about those two folks?
I mean, they're both very well spoken. In my honest opinion, I would have liked to hear someone's opinion from the other side as well, just to keep things balanced. They had good points to make, but I'm sure someone on the other side.
The other side being somebody who's fervently pro-Trump?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought Dr. Boroujerdi was trying to walk the line, and I don't know how aggressively Democrat Reza Goharzad was, but he clearly is not a Trump fan. Yeah,
that's what it sounded like. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, Captain Reza?
Yeah, but what I really liked, and I never looked at it that way, it was what Dr. Boroujerdi said about single issue voters, essentially, who vote simply because they have one issue in mind, and they don't look at a bigger picture. A lot of Iranians, I suppose, they look at it that way, and so they think that if Trump gets reelected, Iran is going to be, at least the government is going to be changing the government. There's going to be put more pressure on the Iranian government, and so that's great. But overall, like you mentioned, I think something about the Cuban Americans voting.
100%. Yeah, so, it is so interesting because we've heard this conversation about other ethnic groups or whatever you want to call them, minorities, and specifically Hispanics in Florida for the last few days, because it was so determinative of what happened in Florida, they say, because those Cuban Americans and I guess some Venezuelan Americans, et cetera, in that Miami-Dade area went Trump, and they are very much single issue voters. I mean, they're self-proclaimed. Look, this guy's got a better line on Cuba than the Democrats who are too cozy with it, whatever, however they would say it. And I actually had an Iranian friend of mine say, "Can you believe these Latinos, these Hispanics voting for Trump? Why would they do that?" And I said, "You have the best insight into this, because we know Iranians. I don't know if this is why you, Kian, are on that side, but we know that there are Iranians who." And I have some in my extended family who it's a single issue for them. It is, this guy is going to be better for, the end of the regime. And now, whether even if you do take that single issue, whether that makes any sense. I mean, as Reza Goharzad said, he's had 4 years, regime's still there. Another 4 years is going to help her. But it is certainly the voting path. The other thing that is just interesting for me as a poli-sci major in university, as somebody who's just a political junkie myself, it's been so interesting how the narrative in recent years, not that there wasn't good data to sort of back up this narrative, but the narrative has been, as America becomes more diverse, places like Texas, Florida, et cetera, it's going to become a more democratic country. And there's going to be more democratic votes, democratic leaders, democratic presidents, because, the notion is that white people vote Republican or, and people of color, et cetera, will vote Democrat. And that's just not true. I mean, it is true percentage-wise. I mean, disproportionately African Americans, of course, voted for Biden in this case. But the notion that all Hispanics, all African Americans, all Iranians are going to vote for the Democratic candidate, not only is not true, in some cases the opposite of the truth. As I say, regardless of travel ban or Muslim ban or any of that stuff, that NPR study I read came out today that said 35% of Muslims in America voted for Trump. Yeah. So there's you cannot generalize about any of us.
You have to look at the bigger picture of what's going on. I mean, let's face facts. There were more wars started during Obama's time than there was in the last 4 years. Let's face these facts. And one of the biggest reasons that Iranians do support Trump is because the biggest thing he did, the biggest campaign promise he did as soon as he was elected, was kill the Iran nuclear deal, which of course makes the mullahs heftier in the pocket.
But you see, that even that nuclear deal is contentious, because not all Iranians are against that nuclear deal.
That's exactly what I'm
saying.
Are you kidding?
Not all Iranians are against it. There were Iranians celebrating in the street when it happened.
That's true.
There's tons of Iranians that support the JCPOA. We don't have to get into all of that, because obviously there's a lot to be mined there.
Yeah.
And I wasn't saying it's a validation of Trump that some Iranians support him, but I agree with you that there are people who have different opinions. And the one important lesson I hope everyone takes from this election in the United States, because the United States is an interesting case study, is that you can't typecast people. You can't just assume, young people are going to be liberal, black people are going to be the Democrats, old white people are going to be Republicans. There may be patterns like that, but this has just blown that all to shreds. I mean, 70 million people or something have voted for Trump, and they weren't all, white middle America racists.
That's true.
Yeah.
So and I have it's a question in my mind circling that I want to know if Trump was a conventional politician, if this single issue voting with minorities would have been as controversial for people and shocking right now, because a lot of people are like, oh, I can't believe minorities are voting for Trump. But if, let's say, instead of Trump, it was Mitt Romney or someone more conventional politician, would have be questioned it as much? Or
in my opinion, it's the picture that the media has painted of Trump. Unfortunately, you don't see that happening on Biden's side. Even though the fact remains
the media doesn't paint the picture of Trump's Twitter feed. We can read what this guy has to say.
Nobody's perfect. Right? I'm not saying that anybody's perfect. But on the other hand, you see Biden making ridiculous comments and clear signs of dementia on his side. And the media doesn't talk about that.
That's hogwash.
Oh,
that's
okay.
Come on, Kian.
We all have our opinions.
We should have had Kian on the line. Let's debate.
I don't consider myself a political
The dementia argument is the most debunked argument about Biden. He clearly doesn't have. His faculties are just fine.
He's just a face for it. We all know that Vice President Kamala Harris is really meant to be the president eventually.
I love it. Diversity.
I love how I walked in here. I was like, I'm not a political person. I'm not going to state my opinions, and here I am.
But you see, that actually makes me happy because this shows that we have people from all walks of life and all different mindsets. Right.
I'm never going to speak to Kian again. It also makes me happy.
This is why I avoid stating my opinion.
Not at all.
This is what America
all opinions are welcome.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll have we'll have to debate it out. I mean, what you believe is dangerous. Let's face it. But
stop watching the news, Jian.
What are you going to do?
Generally, from 2016, Trump, and then Brexit, and it's been several years that I'm fighting with myself to save my belief in democracy, but sometimes I feel that it could be a kind of game, and but in this case and generally I want to say that I am Democrat.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for declaring yourself. Once again, we have much more important things to deal with, like Lubia Polo.
Is it still
and the letters of the day. Let's go to letters.
Okay.
Letter.
This week on episode 57, we had a feature interview with award-winning Iranian-American entrepreneur Elnaz Sadaf. She's the founder and CEO of the Roqe robot, the world's first ever AI-powered smart toy to teach children language and STEM skills, aka the subject of my nightmares. I'm kidding. No, it's a good thing. On YouTube, we have Sultan.
See, you hate everybody all of a sudden.
No, I love her.
You hate the robot. This
she's
is
a genius.
the Trump
The
thing.
woman is a genius.
Okay.
No, I respect intellect, and the woman created something profound. I'm scared of the future in general. Right. This technology era. But it's an amazing thing that she created. Very helpful for children.
Little kid.
I'm just scared of it. Okay. Right. Sultan BC on YouTube wrote, the lady herself sounded like the AI baby toy. That's not nice. And he said, I got really scared. Jian was scared of the robot too. Also, Kian is afraid of Roqe because she smokes weed and she knows she'll trip out. The lonely people like them better. That is simply not true.
Wow, people have really got us figured out here. Yeah.
That's funny.
All right.
To be clear, I don't smoke weed that often. It's a once in a while leisurely
How does
activity.
your doctor feel about the...
He's okay with. We do edibles once in a while. It's nice. It enhances the cooking and
do you
eating
do them
experience.
on your Wednesdays
on
or
weekends?
Weekends.
It's strictly weekends.
I know the full schedule
and
of Kian and her doctor.
There's really nothing else to do these days. Like restaurants are depressing to go do. Sit outdoors while you're freezing to death. Anyway, moving on. We have Marlene Khoury wrote, I am not American, but I vote for Roqe.
Yeah, nice. Pro-Roqe letter, yes.
Shia made this similar comment last week. He would vote
I
for
actually, I don't know if somebody sent it on my Facebook. It's probably not among your letters, but a woman who said that she's buying a Roqe because she heard the thing, and she's a grandmother.
Wow.
And it's getting them for her grandkids.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
That's
Roqes
really
are, is it lovely, or are they going to take over the world? This is the problem.
I'll find out when I have kids if I still think it's
What I want to
useful.
know is that, are we going to get a kickback from that sale?
Yeah, that's
Do
a
we
good
get
point,
some,
Reza the
bakshish?
businessman.
Typical Iranian.
You should start
right?
charging for your girlfriend's Lubia Polo too.
I know.
So, moving on to Instagram, we have username Manel, no full name listed. He or she wrote, this interview along with all the other Roqe episodes are so amazing. I can't stop listening to them. That's lovely.
Nice, thank you.
And then we have Fani Mehnaz. I believe it's a she. She wrote, "This interview was really awesome. Can Roqe help children with autism?" I'm not sure.
Well, I think actually, I was talking to Ponta, the artist, who was taking care of some of this stuff for us, and then Thing got back to her and with the response. Al Nasarov responded.
Please don't call her Thing.
Oh yeah, sorry, the Roqe, the inventor of the thing.
Right.
She got back to her with a response that says, "Yeah, not at this moment, but kids with autism have used Roqe as well." So
that's great.
yeah, and she was very thankful.
That's good.
For the response.
And then we have username only Apkanand, no full name listed. He said, "Fabulous conversation that you love to listen to till infinity in loop, in my opinion. So much out of the box material and most definitely so fascinating."
All right.
It was.
Thank you.
And then moving on, a few weeks ago on episode 50, we had a feature interview with superstar Iranian-American comedian and actor Maz Jobrani. We received a lot of positive mail about him and the interview, but I wanted to give some time to those today who were unhappy about Roqe booking Maz for that interview. On YouTube, we have username Cherie, no full name listed. He or she said, "I believe Maz should stick with comedy. Obviously, he knows nothing about politics." And backtracking to that episode, I think I mentioned it earlier, I found Maz to focus a little too much on that interview with politics.
Well, I mean, I was asking some of those questions. By the way, the irony of these letters is that that was what the interview was about. Him saying, people say these things to me. And here they're proving his point. Stick to comedy, buddy. And, why shouldn't he have a political voice? Why not? Because he's a comedian?
No, it's great.
We should listen to somebody, a lawyer, instead of Maz?
But it shouldn't be a full hour focused only on politics.
Why not?
Because he's a comedian. It's not his expertise.
He's a smart guy.
He's
not just a comedian.
I agree.
Why not? I'm talking to you about politics.
That's my own person. Well, that's why
his opinion too.
I don't openly like to discuss politics because I don't like hate mail coming to me. I'm sensitive, okay?
I believe Maz podcast is not comedy. Have you heard?
I have not. No. Is it politics?
No, he's been quite politically involved.
So he's changing up his game then.
No, not according to him.
Okay.
If you recall in the interview, he said, "I've always been outspoken. I've always been an activist, and this is just a continuation."
Well,
of it.
he should be able to take negative
criticism. He
criticism.
does. I think he does.
All right.
Yeah. All right. What else you got? Come on.
All right. Let's keep them coming. Then we have Alex Asghari wrote, "Maz, why don't you ever say jokes about previous Democratic presidents? And look at what Democrats have done to your state. Many are leaving California to other states, and many others aim to leave." All right. Keep them coming. Then we have Gashas Nodan. This is quite a hefty letter. I'm going to clear my throat as I read this one. He says, "One simply cannot condemn the mullahs and at the same time side with the National Iranian American Council, aka NIAC. If Mr. Jobrani is so unaware of Iranian politics as he seems to be, then better stay out of it. Moreover, he is very self-righteous and offending to the people who rightfully protest about his involvement in NIAC. These people are suffering under the regime, and of course they get mad at amateur political activists like Maz Jobrani. I thought Roqe is a program about successful people in the Iranian diaspora, their achievements in their fields of success, their life stories, and their experiences as immigrants. This is true with some of your guests, but with others like Mr. Jobrani or Mr. Firuz Nadiri, it's just talking politics. No objection to that, but then maybe you should invite more diverse people from all political and social backgrounds, not just Trump haters or social activists who are convinced that Iranians should identify as people of color. Thank you."
All right.
That was a full
said a lot.
He did.
That was a mouthful.
I mean, this person is. Thank you for so much for the letter, and but clearly coming from a political viewpoint and putting everybody into Maz and others in the box from through the prism of which they're seeing him. But sure, I take that as an opinion. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then a few weeks ago, we celebrated our 50th episode. I think it was the same one of Maz Jobrani. And on that episode, we posted a team picture to celebrate. So a few people wrote into that. We have on Instagram, Beth Beish wrote, "Congratulations on 50 thought-provoking and inspiring episodes. Keep up the great work, and may there be many more."
Nice.
Beautiful. And then username Sadaf88, no full name listed. She wrote, unlike most Iranians, Roqe has a very good teamwork. I like Thursday's episodes mostly because the Roqe team members have discussions amongst each other and the audience gets a better chance to know you all. Actually, Mondays, we changed it up. Now it's Mondays and Thursdays. So, yeah. And then we have Adel Sataripour wrote, so proud of Jian and this amazing team. Keep on rocking, brother.
Yeah.
And don't forget to have Shahram Shabpare, a.k.a. the Shio Hasht pioneer, on at some point.
Shisho Hasht. Yeah, what's up with that? Should we get Shahram Shabpare?
Yeah.
It'd be fun to have him on. Why not?
All right. Your wish is our command, Adel. All right. Actually, cancel. Let's cancel that. Please cancel for the love of God.
Kian, that's Shisho Hasht, also known as Shio Hasht.
Hey, he wrote it as Shio Hasht. Okay. Yeah, there's no S. I think it was a typo. Anyway, time for letter of the day.
Yeah. People clapping because it's over. Let's just get to the end.
It's a relief. Club, all the way from London, UK, we have Dave Atkins wrote, hey Jian, massive fan from London, UK. I've been watching you since the Q Music days. Hope you and the Roqe team keep up the amazing work. It's beautiful.
Nice.
Thank you so much, Dave Atkins. That's a very fine letter of the day. Thank you to Dave in my hometown of London, UK. Thank you to Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya, the fabulous Keon. See you Monday. And this is full time for Roqe for today. Thank you so much to those of you who listen to this program, support it, share it, tell people about the content on all of our platforms. Remember, roqemedia.com is the place to find everything and anything that you need with respect to Roqe. Leave comments there for us and go to our patrons page where you can support us. Thank you to the amazing little Roqe team, producer Susan, Thoughtful Negin, Ponsa the artist, the fabulous Keon, Dr Mehrzad, English Mohammed, Savvy Sibil Roham, Captain Reza and Groovy Shaya. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Thank you so much again for listening. And as ever, Mizun Bashi.